Welcome back to Muskeg Tea with Chantel G. I am so grateful you're here sitting in circle with us for our February series dedicated to Indigenous love and relationships. This month, we're leaning into love as medicine, love that is ancestral, love that is reclaimed, and love that exists far beyond colonial definitions. Indigenous love has always been expansive, relational, spiritual, and rooted in community. And today we're holding space for a very sacred and necessary conversation. I'm honored to welcome Ashleigh Cardinal to the circle. Ashleigh is a dedicated public educator, facilitator, and multidisciplinary artist. Ashleigh carries lineage from Saddle Lake Cree Nation and Whitefish Lake First Nation on her maternal side and Kikino Métis settlement on her paternal side. Their work is deeply informed by lived experience, grassroots advocacy, and a commitment to holistic wellness. Ashleigh brings strong leadership to every space they enter, having served 5 years as co-chair for the E2S Board of Directors and recently being appointed to the National 2S LGBTQIA+ committee, bringing Two-Spirit wisdom to national levels. In today's episode, we're holding space for love in all its forms with powerful focus on sacredness of Two-Spirit love and Two-Spirit beings. We'll talk about how colonization disrupted these teachings while also honoring the resilience, the remembrance, and reclamation that's happening today. We'll also be sharing our own lived experiences of Indigenous love and relationships through a Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer lens. So grab your tea, settle in, and join us as we speak truth, tenderness, and love into this space. I did introduce you, but is there anything else that you would like to add?
I would like to introduce myself in my Cree language. So bringing my sacred talking feather. Tante wapikuinea kamanahut nitsigasun maswichi waskaigen otinia. Nigawi is Colleen Cardinal, Saddle Lake Cree Nation, Whitefish Lake First Nations, Nutawi, Dave Cardinal, Kikino Métis Settlement. I am an artist, an auntie mom, a community member, a lover of community, and a cousin. So
Cousin.
can't even take a sip. When we talk about love, it's never serious.
Okay, so I don't know where we're going to start with this conversation. I mean, I do have some questions ready. I guess to start us off, how do you personally define Indigenous love, and how does that definition shift when we center Two-Spirit teachings and experiences?
That is a really good question. From my definition of Indigenous love, comes from my lived experience and what I thought to be love. When I reflect back on my life now being 36 and into a recovery journey of 6 years, it took a lot of misinformation about what love meant. And I know what love is now. Love is not self-sacrificing. Love is not watering yourself down to be presentable to another person. Indigenous love is showing up as the creator, way his creator saw you in their vision when we come to this earth as from the spirit world in becoming earthly beings. That's one of the first things the first and only emotions and feelings that were brought into this world is that love. And when we think about Indigenous love now, I think of the amount of people that have gone through all of the struggles that we have to when that ability to love was taken from us in residential schools, taken through different forms of harm, and reclaiming that love as showing up for yourself, showing up for your community, and that Indigenous love is meeting people where they're at. And I think a lot of my teachings from Indigenous love comes from understanding what Indigenous harm reduction is. When doing the work that I do with the Edmonton Two-Spirit Society now, Indigenous love shows up as wanting to create a better future for our community, given the current state of affairs, especially when we talk about it from a Two-Spirit lens. When we talk about it in terms of the state, the current political state, especially in Alberta, I think about the relatives that are no longer here because of things like homophobia and transphobia and violence. That Indigenous love means to love the self, means to love the people, and to love the self means to I've learned what love meant by learning to be alone. And what I thought was love, thought it only came from romantic romantic love in these last almost 2 years since Taryn passed away. I really learned that love is not just a romantic form. In the last 2 years, I've developed like really close relationships with my friends and my two spirit friends, my indigenous friends, and especially where I work. Like, I went through a really rough first year with her death, and I basically was stripped of everything and everything that I thought I knew about what love was and what it meant to love and be loved. The day that she died, those parts of me died as well, and so, like, I was stripped. I had just one compounding, like, situation with a traumatic and grief-ridden event after the other that it just kinda broke me, every piece of me inside, and everything that I knew about love and everything I knew about life, gone. So, when you're left with this void and you're left with only, like, yourself, that's when those pieces of those loves start to come through when you have nobody but yourself and you're smudged on the floor, when I think about, like, the worst times in my grief, and I've experienced grief before, but I knew that I was capable of love by how heavy the grief was when the first woman that I loved died. That love showed through, she's an ancestor now, and I talked to her a lot, and that really changed the relationship that I had also with the death and dying and how we view the life cycle when we go back to that experience of the worst possible pain you can think of is heartbreak. And the heartbreak that I experienced again, it stripped me of everything that I thought I knew about love and life and my own limiting beliefs. And I really had to sit with that darkness in myself and learn what that love is. That love means like taking care of myself, going to ceremony, connecting and working through my traumas. And we know that in that healing journey, it's a lifelong process. So it took really harsh situations for me to realize that I don't necessarily need to seek that love in another person, that I am the embodiment, and we as Indigenous people, as people of this earth, are the embodiment of Creator's love. So when we say that love it's not just something you say, it's things that you do. It's how you show up for yourself on the worst days of your life, how you show up for people you love when they're going through a hard time. It's the difference you wanna make in this world when you see as a person that's very highly sensitive to what's going on in the world, especially in like places like the United States, we're the embodiment of Creator's love and the way that Creator sees us, the way when we have really special friends in our life, special family members that we're close with, and when we're going through something and they do something nice for us, or it's a really nice day and the sunshine's beaming on your face. As cheesy as it sounds, honestly, those were the small micro joys that really have been getting me through, and being able to have all of my blinders stripped away, all of these things that I thought were so important, kind of gone in an instant when it's somebody that has made such a deep impact on your life and how you view love. Because when her and I were dating for many, many years off and on, like, I believe I met her, I think I was like 21. Met her at a bar, of course, kinda in and out of each other's lives, and this last time that we dated, we were actually, both sober in our relationship, and we had been raising her daughter and my nephew T. And the way that she parented and the way that she was so patient with me being in early stages of recovery and her herself being in early stages of recovery, the way that she just held space to actually learn about me as a person, and we learned about each other. We actually got to know each other outside of partying, and we got really close. And when you're not used to having that type of love and you don't know how to hold it, you're gonna fumble it, like, and there was just a time in our life where we were never able to be fully truthful with each other about where we come from in our life and things that we personally and individually were never able to work through. Even after we had split, like, she was always so kind, and I was always it was always on amicable split. So when she died, that was the most heartbreaking loss I've ever experienced. I've experienced different types of love, but when it's an emotional and spiritual bond with somebody, and through life's circumstances and things just happen the way that they do, and you're not able to hold on to it. I wish I had known more about myself as a two-spirit person, about not being afraid to express that part of myself, being surrounded by people that didn't honor and accept our relationship as being a valid relationship because it was a same gendered relationship. And that was really tough, like not getting the support from a lot and hearing a lot, being hate crimed a lot, being publicly holding hands and stuff. And never being able to say what I needed to say while she was still here kind of ate away at me for a little while. But the really cool thing was that before she's still really close with my family after we split, and she still talked to my mom, and she ended up running into my mom at at a concert here in Edmonton. And one of the last things she said to my mom is that I'll always love Ashley. She told me that a little while after she died. Like she didn't tell me right away. So she's like, I wanted to tell you something. And she told me that. And honestly, like hearing that really like started that process of like unraveling all of the darkness little by little and all of that, like the way that she embodied that love and caring and kindness. She showed that to me in some of the worst moments of my life, being able to share those experiences with her in my first, two-spirit relationship and experiencing that love. I never experienced that with like men. Honestly, I've never had that type of connection with a man. Knowing what I know now about what love was and a lot of the choices that I made and the people and the men that I've dated are there's reasons why they mirror something. Every person we meet or interact with in that way, they teach us something. And they know there's a pattern there. And then when I met the person that I was dating last, like it showed me that I have no reason to be ashamed, and that Indigenous love, especially being a two-spirit person, comes from like sitting in ceremony, especially with like elders and two spirit elders and ceremonial spaces where being two spirit is like the main baseline. Straight people are like a non-minority in our spaces that I'm in. I don't know very many straight people that I friends with. If I'm just being completely honest, it's no hate against the straights. I love y'all, but it's different when you're around friends that like this is what I mean when I talk about that Indigenous love and why I share her story, why I share that grief story, because it was my friends and my kin that held me up when I really like I remember being in that space there and laying on the floor many times just wanting to die, wanting to not be here anymore because she was gone. Had that added layer of the way that she was taken was done so violently, and the other layer is that she wasn't even in Canada when it happened, and she died doing what she loved, which was traveling. And then another layer was having her daughter witness it, and her daughter not being listened to or believed by the Las Vegas police, and her body being held in the United States for like a month before she could be released back. And through this process in the last like 2 years, since she died, I haven't dated. I haven't been with anybody. I've kind of lost interest, and I think that's for a good reason. It's because of when we talk about that love, because Creator, there was something that happened that really I needed to sit with myself and be with myself. So like these last like 2 years, it's just been me. And I used to be a habitual relationship jumper, going from relationship to relationship to relationship, and not knowing how to be alone and being afraid to be alone because that's where like because of the trauma that runs in like many Indigenous families, like our idea of what love is actually like littered with unhealthy patterns and like codependency. And that's something that I was blind to right up until Taryn died. I thought, oh, if I just find a better partner, that things will be okay. But then each person that I dated or interacted with, it always ended in the same thing. I'm like, so who's the common denominator? Me. So that's when I knew that I had to really stop my own patterns and choose to be without a partner. So it's been like 2 years, and like this is the happiest I've ever been, since I was with Karen. Like even those happiest moments that we had, like being able to get to know myself and continue to like share that narrative and understand what that meaning of Indigenous love means. Like it grows and it changes. The more I get to know myself, the more that I'm in community, the more that I do the work that I do, it just continues to shape and it changes shape. It shows up in the people that I love. It shows up in the work that I do. It shows up the spaces that I'm in, and it shows up in my role, even as a housing manager. Like the work that I do, I manage the emergency and transitional housing project and working with people and having really unpleasant lived experiences in managers and wanting to do right by the people that are working for me or working with me on this housing project. So that love kind of just shows up in different ways. Like it's just how a person like chooses to pay attention to it, and the way that they look at it.
Oh my gosh. I just want to say that
I am so proud of you. Honestly, like as you're speaking, like I can just see your spirit glowing. And even with Taryn, I can just feel her that she's just so proud of you too. And she's cheering you on. And especially with the work that you're doing. Oh, it's gonna make me cry.
I'm getting all sentimental.
But just just the way you describe that love is just so beautiful. And you know what, being okay to be by yourself takes a lot. I Yeah, I've been single for almost 2 years as well, and and the
Too single at concern.
I mean, I feel like people cross your paths and they're either like a lesson or whatever.
Yeah. Honestly, for real though, I think that when we talk about Indigenous love and all of our real toxic past relationships, they have taught us something, right? Sometimes they taught us how not to be.
Yes,
You
yes.
know?
And I wanted to say how proud I am of you. And I could just see you're glowing and you're growing. And the fact that you even mentioned how you find love in other things, like especially with the work that you do, I connected with that so much because it makes me think of like when I'm cooking, right? Especially when I'm cooking for our unhoused community members. Like I put so much love into that food, and I pray for it and, put that good energy into it. And it's just like those little things that I guess fill my cup. That's what makes me feel okay to be alone right now. No one's going to come and disrupt this day.
Once dusty child is not gonna come disrupt my healing. Been working too hard on myself.
For real.
Gotta meet me where I'm at, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Totally get it. That's so valid. Like that's exactly where I've learned that is that coming from trauma and having the experiences that I have, I've learned that I've actually like did a lot of backtracking when I think back to like where does the behavior stem from when I do, because when you start wanting to change behaviors and patterns, you have to recognize where it comes from. And I would go back, I'm like, okay, so that's where it started, wanting that validation, especially like needing validation from men, thinking that's the only source of my worth as a human being, and like realizing later the longer I'm sober, the less I like them.
And that's another thing I want to talk about too, is that whole part of like when you're grieving and you feel that pain of like heartbreak, and to do that sober, oh my gosh, it takes so much strength out of you. And also just feeling it, just feeling it and going through it, like it is draining. So back in like 2013, I started seeing this Jamaican chick, and that was a whole situation that I shouldn't have got myself into. But by the time I had realized what was going on, like I was already attached to her, right? And so we saw each other off and on for about a year. And she broke it off with me because I'm just going to say it. So she was married to another woman, and I was obviously single. And so I became like the side chick, right? And so by the time I had realized whatever, like I was already attached to her. And so, anyways, she cut me off. And when she left like that, that for me was like such a heartbreak where I felt like I wanted to just die. And mind you, it didn't help that, I was already drinking and whatever else. And so instead of feeling that pain through and just allowing myself to cry it out, I use substances to numb myself. But my point is that now that we're sober and having to experience heartbreak, like it's a whole different level doing it sober. And and for you to do that and go through that, like I commend you, because I can just imagine what you were going through.
I think that also, like, her death hit me that much harder is because I didn't deal with the breakup. Because instead of like substances, I was already in my recovery journey by then, right? So instead of substances, my source of instant gratification was a relationship, a new person to distract from myself. And so her dying kind of slapped me in the face. Like I had to do like twice the amount of grieving because as soon as like we split, I was already like ready to date somebody else. And that I didn't notice that pattern until just before she died. And so I took a little bit of a break, but in that, like her and I were like that with each other. How we were was that we met partying. We were each other's party girlfriends in and out and each other's lives. And then we'd go back to dating men. And then we come meet each other and then we, on the key mooch, just so I can totally I can totally relate to that in that sense is that's I feel like when I thought about it now within the last like I'm like we would have done so much better if we were like if we had our own like boyfriend or something because like that throuple and that's when it got me thinking I'm like being a two-spirit indigiqueer person is like our relationship dynamics can be so different that heteronormativity is so prevalent in our communities that it's so unnatural for or not normal for folks to see different types of relationship dynamics, honestly. But I am more fluid towards being attracted to like women and like feminine people or female presenting people. I have not been with a man or liked a man in years, honestly. It's been like the last guy that I was with, uh, was the guy that I dated after Taryn and I broke up, and oh my god, it was awful. I'm like, "Why did I do
How long was that relationship?
I had a crush on him when I was, like, 25, and then we ended up, like, before and if he ever comes across this podcast, he's probably gonna know who he is. I'm not gonna say your name. And we were just under a year, and he tried, and we tried, but there was always something that felt like it was missing, and I think I'm at that point where because I decentered men from my life that I know that sexuality is not a choice because if I had it my way, I would not be attracted to men at all. So that's why I know sexuality is not a choice. I would not choose to like men, but here I am the way creator made me. And that's what I struggle with a lot. Growing up on a res where there's like no language, no talking about queerness or because the association that a lot of our people have with like queerness or two-spirit identity or LGBTQI plus has a lot to do with like the harms that are stem back from residential schools that experience especially like sexual abuse. And when I think about that, it's prevalent in our communities. I've had people even tell me that two-spirit people didn't exist. I'm like, hello, I exist. And learning from like elders, like there's actual teachings and lodges and medicines and songs and like roles and responsibilities of a two-spirit person. And I think that because of patriarchy, we're so riddled with that heteronormativity that it's automatically assumed that, and the way that I was raised in that heteronormativity is that it was find a nice man, have a bunch of babies, get married, be a baby machine. But as I get older, I realize that's not my dream, like that's not how I envision my life to be. And I'm 36 and I'm still trying to envision what my ideal partnership would look like. Right now, like I'm glad I took the time to be with myself and because Creator told me, Creator literally found a way to tell me like if you don't they showed me that through the person that I was dating last that if I don't change my ways, I'm gonna end up like this person. Still going from relationship to relationship. I'm like, okay. And they treated me so horribly, especially around when Taryn died. And this is no shade to them. This is just what happened, right? That they were a mirror to my patterns that if I continued that way, I would be stuck in like unhealthy patterns of going from relationship to relationship and running from myself. And then all of that happened at once. And I had no choice but to be with myself and look at myself and hold myself up and really start getting to like the nitty gritty of like the deeper healing stuff. The one person that I love that showed me different love in different ways is died. So that hurt, but I feel like now because the processes that I've done and the work that I do, going to ceremony, I went to my first fast, understanding like that they are ancestors now and then they're always with us. And so that really like doesn't change the pain about them being gone. It just makes it a sort of like a path forward and like how I want to be in this world because the one person that I wanted to get my stuff together for, I didn't get a chance to. I felt like I had more time to get my stuff together after the last time we broke up because my head was like, oh, we'll end up back together. Oh, we'll talk again. And it didn't happen, And I also had to grieve that. Like I was angry for a little while, like that opportunity to see her again and talk to her again was taken. And also doing this work, it also helped me show love for the person that hurt her. Having to look at it from all angles and the overall violence in our communities. And that's, like, it's taught me to look at things from a different perspective. And it comes from like, those really, really, I call them like DNA slash cellular level changes that impacts and traumatic events that kind of scared me to not wanna be with anybody, not because I'm afraid to get hurt, but because I wanna do it right the next time, like, I have done it so incorrectly every single relationship, and that's partly my fault, like, I was not a healthy person. I was not in a good space to actually know what it meant to be in a healthy relationship because I was taught that love and relationship equals codependency
Mhm.
that equals yelling and cold shoulder and stonewalling and all these things. Like it was very prevalent in my last two relationships. And it was that was also a pattern. I'm like, I'm seeing something, like I'm seeing what I saw growing up,
Mhm.
but in a different form. And, also learning through those really harsh experiences what love isn't when we talk about it like that, especially Indigenous love. And, pretty much made it my life's mission to, love as much as I can and spread that love as much as I can, tell my story, tell her story as much as I can because we're spiritual people. And I feel another form of Indigenous love is educating people, leading people back to our ways and their ways that help us connect to the self because of the spiritual warfare that goes on in the world.
Mhm.
And
That is so freaking deep. And honestly, I knew I was attracted to both female and male. I was young. I was probably like 11 years old, 12 years old when I knew that I was attracted to both. And of course, I was scared to admit that. Going back to what you said when it comes to Indigenous love or just love within ourselves, coming from intergenerational trauma and seeing how relationships were back then, like you said, cold shoulder, not communicating effectively, yelling and whatever. Like that's how it was because I got out of a relationship like 2 years ago. I know I'm not ready to be in a relationship because I have some unpacking to do, and it stems from my past relationships, right? Like I don't trust. I will always speculate or, certain things will trigger me and it reminds me of like my ex here or ex there, blah, 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 right? So I don't want to bring that into the next relationship because I want healthy love. I want to have a healthy relationship. And in order for me to have that, I need to still heal. So I don't know, maybe I'll be single for another 2 years. And it's just crazy like how I guess how small this world is because everybody knows everybody, especially in like indigenous communities. Like everyone
two-spirit community. Oh my gosh. I will never date somebody from around here ever again. I'm just saying.
I honestly, it doesn't even matter if they're from here or like from Treaty 1, Treaty 7. It's like
Somebody is somebody's ex.
yeah.
Somebody knows somebody. And I've had to learn that. It's so common in like the indigenous queer community. I'm like, I guess I'm gonna have to learn to be okay with that. And I feel like there's a little bit more maturity in that. Me, however, I'm still mad at my ex, still healing through some of the shit that my ex put me through, right? And I agree with that. I don't wanna carry that in being salty about somebody else's actions, but it also is like something that impacted me so much during one of the worst times of my life that it's like I never want that to happen to me again or behave in that way again. Because like when you think about it when you're out of it, I'm like, I really acted like that. I was really like giving myself to this person, just rushing it, trying to U-Haul it with this very beautiful human being that everybody finds attractive. Believe me, I still hear it today. They're like, oh, that's your ex. Like, I know, that's why I got with them. I'm like, that's what got me. I got sucked back in.
You're like, you know what? I'm just gonna call him right now.
How you doing? Creep their Instagram or whatever social medias they have. Creep and doing a checkup.
Make a burner account.
Follow them. I want to see what you're up to. Just ask her brother. Actually, friends with him still. That's what I got out of the divorce. a good friendship with her brother, which is I'm really grateful for. So at least I can take her for that
Yeah.
because like dating her, like a lot of really good things have happened because of that.
Mm.
I'm really grateful that I was able to look at things and have to start looking at myself because I would have just kept on. I just kept going from relationship to relationship. But honestly, like this is the longest I've been single since before I started dating, and it's still a new feeling. Sometimes I miss having a partner. I miss doing things with somebody. And then I will download a dating app and I'll try to talk to somebody and I'll delete it. I'm like, I can't do it. Like I don't know. It's just like I feel so different than I about love and dating because of the mistakes that I've made. Like I don't completely blame the people I've dated, because I've shown up in not so great ways many times. I don't come from like a healthy background. And so learning what healthy Indigenous love definitely is a progress, and it's been a really scary new journey, but it's so exciting because I'm not heartbroken over somebody cheating on me. I'm not worried about what somebody's doing, and by the time that comes around, I feel like I'm already addressing those things in my life by filling it with things I love. Like now I started going to the gym again. I started doing dance classes. I started taking pole. I've started taking burlesque classes because unpacking all of that unhealthy and that trauma like brings to those surface. Like what comes with also being like queer to spirit is the shame. My whole life being and knowing this about myself because I too knew that at a very young age. I think I first knew and had an idea, but didn't know the language towards it when I believe this is when I still lived on the res in Goodfish. I think this is when I went through a real WWE phase. And when I first saw Lita Hardy with the Hardy Boys and Kim from Power Rangers, the Pink Ranger, no, the Yellow Ranger, I'm like, and then my mom told me this one time that I thought cows were lesbians. And there were signs, subtle foreshadowing.
Yeah, yeah.
She's got a little touch of the gay. Honestly, like I have an easier time talking to men. Women can I struggle with that because like I feel because like my appreciation and love for like women and feminine people is so much deeper than just physical. It's like I don't know how to talk to you, but you're nice to look at and you're nice to be around. I don't know. I turn into like one of those really shy high school kids who doesn't know how to talk to women because I don't.
That's crazy. For me, it's the opposite. Like when it comes to men, I feel like I don't know how to approach them, talk to them, blah blah blah. Even though I think they look great, there's just something where I'm like, oh, I can't do it. But when it comes to females, I'm like, here, baby, like let's.
I think it's because I've gotten so good at knowing this is me admitting my toxicity. I know how to manipulate men. I know how to I know how to do it, right? I've done it. That was my defense mechanism my whole life. And it's just so easy. Like I don't view men as like people to be super attracted to or, feel enamored about. Like because like I appreciate women so much. And I've only been in two queer relationships and both of them one of them died. Real morbid.
Holy shit!
One of them broke my heart. But honestly, like those two experiences were like the most impactful, like because I was raised to be ashamed of it. Like I felt like I had to hide that part of me because I grew up in a homophobic home. Thankfully, like my mom was the only person, when I had some sort of language to like my identity at 15, like she supported it. However, I didn't get that from my dad. And so I grew up hearing that it's wrong, that it's wrong, that it's wrong. And so part of like when I would be in my addiction, I'd only ever feel uninhibited and comfortable and safe to be or connect with women or flirt with women when I was drunk.
Yeah.
Men, however, it's no, I don't feel that same way. Like I can still feel attraction or connection to a man, but like I don't feel I could see myself having a future with a man the same way that I would before that, especially taking this break. Like my idea of like a healthy relationship will look like is absolutely nothing like what I've experienced. My own unhealthy coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms and insecurities that come out because like I experienced that too. Like whenever that's why I'm very cautious about starting to like somebody. Like, cause I tried to like somebody and talk to somebody, I think it was last year, and I turned into that wanting to see them all the time, wanting to just do the most for them and be there for them. And I'm like, girl, what are you doing?
Pump the brakes.
What are you doing? This is a guy. And we're still good friends, him and I. It just
Yeah.
didn't work out that way. It ended up being really like weird for us to go in that direction with our friendship because I saw him more as like this nerdy dude I know in community. And he was nice to me. And because I'm so, it's a, like, that also like when I think about that love, I always like do my best to comfort myself when I think about all the times that I was mistreated and not treated with love and respect and like all of
Yeah.
the really times where I was in situations where I expected some sort of love or return of love from somebody who didn't even know that themselves. You know, trying to find that love and, running from myself, running from that, and then having to fall flat on my chisk and really unpack what love really means, and it comes from knowing what love isn't. It takes a lot of work to do that because it means I'm willing to be abstinent, abstinent from sex, abstinent from hookups. Like that was like something that was my way. Like, it was either a relationship or hooking up with somebody, and I didn't like that actually. Why I quit drinking and stuff is because that pattern got really old for me. I didn't like the way that felt. I felt that in my spirit that giving my body to somebody like because that little broken, hurt part of me just wanted love. And putting myself in situations like that, I didn't like the way that felt waking up alone. I didn't like the way that felt somebody not cuddling me or just treating me like an object. And so I pretended for like the longest time that that didn't bother me, like I had no feelings, but it actually really hurt me. When I actually talked to my therapist about it, like doing that for you seems like it's like a form of self-harm. Like, ah, you're onto something. That makes sense when you're raised to believe that the goal is to be with a man. Again, a man, being a wife, house, picket fence, the dream. I thought that's what I wanted, and I thought that would make me happy, and that's why Karen and I split. I was like, I want a family, not thinking that there's alternative ways to have families, and she was okay with it, and kicking myself in the ass for it. I'm like, totally could have had all of that without thinking I needed to go be with a man. And that's no hatred against men. I love men. I love healthy men. I love seeing the embodiment of what a healthy man, especially a healthy Indigenous man, a healthy father figure looks like. 'Cause I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have very many healthy models, role models of what it meant to be treated well. So when I had this really skewed view of what love was, like that became like my identity. That became, seeking that validation from outside sources. Learned that it's really important to fill your children's cups up with love and fill them up and tell them how great they are and how beautiful they are, smart they are. Building up children is so much easier to treat than a broken adult. And I learned that also being a mom, being an auntie mom to my nephew, like working really hard to gentle parent and break parental cycles of like yelling and, all the things that I didn't even know that I was affected by until I became a parent. So that's also another way of showing Indigenous love, like being an auntie mom is another way. I got to experience motherhood. That is something that I want one day, before my body goes into menopause and I can't have kids anymore. Like, I can see myself. It's just, I'm trying really hard to not think like, when is it going to happen? When am I going to meet this person? When am I going to do all of these things? And I got my reminder today it's the journey, right? And, like the focus is on yourself, and when you're least thinking about it the most, that's when somebody comes along. Because I still picture, I still like the idea of love. I love being in a relationship. I love companionship, but I also didn't know what healthy companionship was. It's, I would lose myself in every relationship that I was in, like to be more palpable to them and wanting the love from them and not realizing that I am love. And every time I think that I cringe a little because it sounds so cliche. The love is within because it really is, but it's also outwardly too. You know what I mean? It's like the people you surround yourself with when you go out to ceremony and you take care of yourself, you drink water. There's so many different ways to show and express love that there's a big emphasis on romantic love as being the only source of love, and it's really not. I thought it was, like, for my whole life, actually. Oh, if I get the right partner, then I'll be okay, not realizing that I needed to learn how to be by myself first, and I'm really grateful for that. It's scary, but here we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on what you mentioned, your father not accepting you and trying to understand yourself as a two spirit. I think that's a really great reminder for us adults, us as parents, is just being mindful of how we speak because I've been in situations where I'm sitting with a group of adults and they're using those terms of like, oh, that's so gay, or don't be a, F word, right? And then you have little ones that are watching, listening, and it's like if they hear that, then they're gonna automatically think it's wrong, right? And so as they get older and then they're starting to understand, like, okay, maybe I'm two spirit, they're not gonna feel safe to come to you, especially after you've said stuff like that. And so when it comes to myself and my children, I know my son, there's been times where he's said the F word or whatever, trying to be homophobic, and I always have to correct him, like, "Don't talk like that." And now he's changed. He's more open, and I feel like for him too, it was just more or less not really understanding, right? And it just has to go with, like, even, his father, because his father's, like, homophobic, and that was one of the reasons why we had to separate because I'm two-spirit bisexual, and his father obviously has some homophobia there. I experienced gender-based violence being with him, and that was one of the reasons why I had to separate from him, and, ugh, like, thinking about it now, I think it was, like, in October 24, where he was, like, under the influence, and we were already separated, right? But he ended up attacking me because of me being two-spirit, and in that moment, it was either, uh, go to the police and charge him for assault because he physically attacked me, or going out to the land and offering tobacco and praying for him. I went out to the land, I went to Saddle Lake and went to the water and I offered tobacco and I just sat there and cried for like, I don't know, maybe 4 hours because like he obviously has his own experiences and the reason why he is the way he is. And so I didn't want to go to the RCMP and throw him in jail because that's not going to help him. And so I just had to pray about it. Right. And so that was probably the first times that I've ever done something like that, and it honestly did make me feel better. We're still talking, right? Because he is the father of my children, and so, um, I've obviously forgiven him, and I feel like since then, yeah, he's, I don't know, maybe becoming more accepting, right? 'Cause I did a two-spirit painting, and it had the bisexual heart in the middle with syllabics and just saying that I love myself, and he ended up taking that when I moved out, he ended up taking that, and I thought he destroyed it. For, like, that whole year, he actually still had that painting, and he put it in a frame for me, and he apologized, and he just said, like, "I'm really sorry." And that made me emotional because I'm like, "Wow, like, that's a huge step for him," right? And so yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that as just us as adults and parents, just being mindful of how we talk and not using those slurs, not being homophobic and just coming from a space of to understand because before colonization, like we were already here.
Yes, and our 2 boyfriends and 3 wives living in peace before colonization disrupted it. Just
Mhm.
saying.
Mhm.
Um, it's so this is I feel like when you told your story, you're literally telling the story about why I stopped dating men. That was my same experience. Do you remember the guy that I was living with and that when we went on that walk?
Okay, yes.
Like he knew, and I've told him that I identify as two spirit. And it was actually one of the times he was drunk when this happened,
Mm.
and he was so homophobic to me, and it scared me. It was about 6 months before we split that he was also cheating on me at the same time.
Mm.
The scarier thing was he made it unsafe for me to be in my home as a two-spirit
Mhm.
person. It took me 6 months to be brave enough to leave because I cared about him as a person, and I thought, I'm one of those people that was willing to meet people where they're at. It just got so bad, and that was kinda the last straw, was, like, that gender-based violence that I experienced, and that's how I ended up here in this apartment, and I've been here 3 years. Actually, like, a year ago, he actually reached out to me and apologized. So, like, he did apologize for a lot of the ways that he didn't show up that the way that he should have, and even though I didn't need that closure or that validation for the experience, it was really nice for him he reached out to me out of nowhere. I haven't spoken to him in like 2 years. We were able to have that amicable, that was a way of closure because it sucks because I cared about them and we got along really well. That also speaks to like there's a lot of homophobia in our community. There's a lot of homophobia in our community. I was talking with my aunt Michelle, who's also an Indigenous queer.
Mhm.
Um, I call her our baby gay. So she's a baby gay, and she's open about it. She talks about it all the time. We're
Yes.
not outing her, so it's like she'll
Shout
probably
out to Auntie Michelle.
we love you.
Yes, we do.
And so we were talking about that. It's like she too heard that growing up about, being gay, air quote gay is wrong. And I feel like because I never like I heard it as a child, that kind of stuck with me too. And I had hid that part of myself. And I do experience that attraction to men, but I also experience that attraction to women. And like because of like those heteronormativity and monogamy that I had to choose, that I could just choose. And, being a two-spirit person and knowing and doing the work that I do, being in spaces where it sets positive conversation. There's discussion about different relationship dynamics, and some people it work that doesn't monogamy doesn't work for people. And I feel like that's a forced thing along with heteronormativity is that monogamy and being straight and a man or a woman is like that's what people assume is that all there is. And when we have those really difficult conversations with people, it's a concept that's some people because it's so different than what we're taught from a societal standard of how we should be, who we should love, and the type of relationships we get into that, I would rather be I wouldn't consider myself to be like a somebody that's a polyamorous. I would consider myself to be somebody that does ethical, that would be more open to like ethical non-monogamy in a way where I'm not there's no harm, there's no cheating, there's different relationship expectations. Like I have this really interesting vision for myself, like the way that I would like to have a perfect relationship where like if I'm co-parenting with somebody, but I'm still or even a lavender marriage. I am so down for a lavender marriage.
Explain that.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So, when we talk about that love and that love is not just romantic. So what a lavender marriage is, it's like a gay man and like a woman or femme and they get married and they have kids, but their relationship is open so that they can both date people they're attracted to, but they love each other so much they'll be in a relationship and marry each other and live together, but they still have like that concept of being able to go and have an open relationship, but they love each other.
Okay.
I'm like, I would love to be married to a gay man and have like that would be ideal. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Like honestly, like a lavender marriage sounds so fun. And it's so common. There's actually like more people are in lavender marriages than would like to admit.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
okay.
Like, I find with a lot of people that are extremely homophobic that are very hateful towards it, oftentimes they're not they're questioning or they're in the community.
Yes.
And I wish people would stop being so ashamed of that.
Yes.
Because admitting this part to myself and living as this part of this truth about myself has been so freeing.
Mhm.
Scary and it's not always accepted, but that's not the point. The point is that it's freeing and it's like walking out of a prison cell and breathing fresh mountain air from being stuck underwater and being forced to live in a way just to be palpable and accepted by a society that actually doesn't really care about me as a person. That's not built for me. I'm not built for standardized relationships and concepts, and I'm still, exploring what that means. But I know that I have attraction to like all kinds of people. It's more about like energy and vibes and the way that person makes me feel. And that's what I've learned is that I don't have to choose one gender over another gender I can love and appreciate somebody as their whole being. And that's what makes me attracted to a person. The closest thing I can think of is like pansexual, where it's being attracted to all kinds of genders, not genders. So, you see the person for who they are. I just like to say that I'm a being that loves other beings. Like, I want to vibe with somebody and have like similar, life goals or passion for different things, individuality. And so that's what I think about when I think about love.
Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, like, it's taken me 36 years to come to this conclusion. Like, I'm at that point. I have, the one person that I truly loved died. Like, so I owe it to her to be myself. I'm gonna heal those parts of me because she also struggled with a lot of that in her family. And that's also one of the reasons why it made our relationship so difficult because we didn't get the support from her family. Like, they also have their own lived experience with that. And it was after she died, like, showing up to that rally, I was like kind of like nervous because they were not so kind about our relationship when we dated. And I was scared to show up because I didn't want to hear nasty things about me as a person, that there's who I am is wrong and how I exist is wrong. But facing them and talking to them and being able to actually be a part of the rally, and like, this was like June, July, August, about 3 months after she died, I saw them for the first time after. And yeah, it was really scary because it was really hard because I wanted her family to like me so much. I wanted her parents to accept our relationship because we really loved and cared about each other. And still something working through that, that's not always the case. And not everybody has loving, supportive family for being themselves. And so that's why I'm so passionate about creating a space where people come as they are, and especially with our emergency and transitional housing, goes into that serious conversation about the high percentage rates of unhoused two-spirit youth, especially in Edmonton alone. Recently, over the last, I think it was last week, one of my dear friends who identifies as a trans femme was attacked in her home by her next door neighbor. And they were saying really awful derogatory things towards her and trying to kick down her door. She had to call the cops and they almost attacked her. That's not, unfortunately, like, when we think about statistic wise, trans women are one of the highest targeted for sexual assault, for violence, and it goes unreported because there's also so much layers of stigma behind it about reporting, especially like from the victim side. When it does get reported, there's also the added layer of like the RCMP or the EPS being homophobic, transphobic, not acknowledging somebody's gender expression and gender identity, and making it that much harder for them to feel safe to go. Because we already have that added layer of BIPOC folks not having the best relationship with like police services. Add on being queer or trans or non-binary into that, you get the racism, you get the homophobia. So that's what it's all about, is like, we in our communities, we need to talk about that, because when we think about our little ones, and when you talk, 'cause when you speak about that mindfulness about what we say and what we speak out loud around our children, like, children are like sponges. I didn't realize, like, when I was with my nephew, he had such good hearing, and I'm like, how could you hear me? I'm just gonna speak telepathically. I'm gonna speak spiritually.
Actually, they're watching, they're listening, and they mimic everything that we do. And so, yes, it's like we just got to be mindful for the next generation. So I feel like I'm in a space of, like how you said, you're just going to wait for love to show up and you're not going to go look for it. That's where I feel like I'm in. I'm just in this space. I'm going to be healing and just waiting. I don't go anywhere, mind you. So they're just going to knock on my door one day and be like, I'm here.
I made a TikTok about that before. Somebody knocking on my door. That's how I expect to find love. I'm also a homebody, so my hope is that, like, meeting somebody organically, because I was told that dating sites are not for me, and they never have been.
We're in our cookum vibes right now.
I know I'm not interested in and I'm not in my nephew area. I'm not into being cougar status. Nothing. I'm too old for that.
He only wants one thing.
One thing only, and it's not my heart. I can't do hookup culture without.
It scares me because I feel like, with that hookup culture, you never know who's been with who and what they may have. And so for myself, like, I've been celibate. I know that I'm clean. I know that whatever, like, my body's good to go for the next person that I may share myself with. And it's just scary because it's like, I don't know where they've been. I don't know if they are clean, and I feel like I'm at the age, like, I'm 40 now, and so I'm at the age where I can openly ask, like, "If you're clean, like, let me know, like, I need to see papers," like,
Show me your papers.
for real, I have my papers, like, my papers are ready to go.
Just you-
This isn't Photoshop, this is the real deal.
well, side note, it is considered healthy to get yourself tested every year.
Yes.
Yearly.
Yes,
We are sex positive around here.
word. So
Honestly, I get scared of that too because it wasn't too long ago. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I was in an urban indigenous like STBBI research engagement session, and I spoke
yes,
to a street nurse that does outreach out here in the city, and she said syphilis is up 40 something% in Edmonton.
that is crazy.
I'm like, well, no, this candy shop's closed. Shriveled. Cobwebs.
I'm not dusting this thing off. No,
It's staying dusty.
Yo, but that's what I'm saying. That's just like that's what freaks me out because it's like, yes, I want to be with somebody, but at the same time, I'm like, show me those papers.
And that's so valid because we don't get to talk about that enough about safe sex. It's such a touchy subject and everyone's so shy. I'm like, I'm not shy. I may be shy to talk to women, but sex I had no problem talking about because I spent so long being ashamed about it, being ashamed of sex, to
Yes.
have sex, to experience pleasure, to experience, orgasms, to
Yeah.
experience all of those things that we're trained to believe that sex is only for reproduction. I'm like,
It's like it's a transfer of energy, and obviously we're in a space where we want it to be healthy now, and before when I was younger it was raunchy.
it kind of was for me. Like I didn't care, and that also like that speaks to like not being taught about like all that stuff. And now here, the Alberta government wants to take sex education out of schools.
It is.
I know they're really like we're going backwards. All the work and advocacy that we've gone to get to this point, it feels like we're taking a step back.
Can you share what you were taught or what you've learned or relearned about the sacred roles of the Two-Spirit people in Indigenous communities before colonization?
This is literally my favorite thing to talk about.
Yes.
And this is part of the work that we do now. Okay, so this is based on like what I was taught from a Cree elder, when we go think kaya so long ago, long before contact, when we're all living our happy lives and everything was just, chill. The Cree people like recognize like 8 different genders in our community, and there's language for each of them and a different meaning. And even the way we raise children is so different. Like when it came to raising Two-Spirit children weren't actually often raised by their gender marker or gender identity. Like if they were born male, they were raised based on like their gifts because they say that when you're born a Two-Spirit person that there's like a different gift that you have and that you have a ability to see things like that two-eyed seeing. Well, it's like that two-eyed seeing within the two-eyed seeing because you're able to look at things from like a feminine and masculine perspective and then, going beyond the binaries. And when we were existing like that, I've learned a lot about child rearing and like, what would it be like to have been raised as a Two-Spirit child in our community long before like the introduction of contact. We weren't gendered typically, and us as children, we were raised based on our gifts, and we were also raised up until a certain age, I want to say age 7, that we weren't actually gendered and that the children would tell them community what they identified as. And it was automatically accepted, not like today where everything is lost because of colonization. And I wouldn't say lost, I would say more like sleeping. And so when we think about Two-Spirit people had so many different roles in the community, like being a part of that circle. And when we do things in the movement, we're not free until we're all free. And I say that in the sense that men have roles, women have roles, the youth have roles, the elders have roles, the Two-Spirit people have roles that all contributes to a community. So when we go back to like the roles that Two-Spirit people traditionally had, they had everything from being a mediator, being in government systems for their ability to see things in like in multiple different ways, more than different like from what a man's worldview and what their understanding of life was, and like Indigenous women. And so we had our own lodges, we had our own medicines, we have our own deity that we pray to. That's part of actually the creation story. And I've heard that from Jerry Saddleback and Joanne Saddleback, who are one of the like Saddleback is one of the very few people in Alberta that knows High Cree and has the teachings of Two Spirit people from a cultural perspective. And it tied it into a lot of like my own identity now, being able to tie it into culture and our ways and our ceremonies. And so we were existing as that. And one of the another one of the things, roles we had is like when there were orphan children in the community, like at the parents' side, the child would often go be raised by the Two Spirit person because of that ability to have multiple perspectives and see things in different ways. And that was disrupted by colonization through contact, because when you think about where colonization comes from, it's those Catholicism views that were not of our ways, and they came and they explored us and they studied us. And they had like this, I don't know how to even pronounce that word. It was like a very derogatory term for what they saw us as, like, and so it started with the church. It started like there's only man and woman, there's only um you have to be with a man and woman, you're either man or woman, this doesn't exist, that's wrong, that's wrong. And when you traumatize a whole group of people, like our Indigenous people, by putting them in residential schools and putting, Two Spirit children in residential schools where it's their one of their very first run-ins and experiences with a gendered space, like the girls and the boys side, where did the Two Spirit children go? That also subjected further perpetuating of harm against Two Spirit children, and that child on child harm that these systems and the residential school had instilled. Like when you take a whole group of people and you traumatize them and you essentially brainwash people into thinking that, especially when you talk about, this is no harm against people that practice religion, but like misinterpreting the teachings that are in the Bible and using it to harm people, like take that and put it over decades and decades um against our community. It's no wonder, and it's so understandable about where homophobia and transphobia and biphobia and discrimination comes from, is because of that, because we didn't even have language for anything transphobic. Transphobia was not part of our ways. If anything, Two Spirit people are, and especially our Two Spirit trans relatives, when I speak with them, I think that trans people are such a beautiful embodiment of living in your truth and living in a space where a world is so trained to believe that your existence is not valid. When creator, I feel like trans kin and our non-binary kin, especially some folks that are like even more oppressed and more marginalized within the Indigenous community, are like the embodiment of what creator's love is, because you're looking at these people and they're not, we're taught to and trained and to believe and that only these two certain gender binaries exist, which there's not. But when we get into like the scientific aspect of intersex people, it's a whole other deep dive, and it ties into like the anti-trans legislation that's here in Alberta. But when you disrupt that, they meticulously and purposely attacked certain parts of our community to know that Two Spirit people were like some of the most revered community members because they were some of the most powerful and gifted. And knowing that, on top of intentionally wanting to break our culture and our connection to our spirit, our connection to our community, you start with breaking the children. You start with, there's little introductions like the Indian Act, which was incredibly sexist against Indigenous women. And it didn't even acknowledge Two Spirit identities. And that was done on purpose. It's that purposeful erasure. And so now, like, not just residential schools, that was like the big contributing factor, yes. But then we also have a lot of our survivors and Two Spirit survivors going back into the communities, not being able to access mental health supports or knowing their teachings about Two Spirit people, and it being put to sleep because these new ideologies are that our ceremonies are wrong, our ways are wrong, being Two Spirit is wrong, doing all of these things are so wrong, and you're training people to to not like that, but yet we grew up um long time ago as it being so widely accepted that it was never a thing. This was never an issue. Is people would be able to have different types of relationships at different attractions, and nobody batted an eye. So thanks to colonization, I can't have my boyfriend and my girlfriend, but without like being judged a certain way. And I'm okay with admitting that. That's what I know. Um, biggest implicator, I have like politicians in Alberta that continue to perpetuate that violence
Mhm.
and base it on Christian values or Catholic values, or it's not the right way, or we're causing harm, or and also sending really harmful messages against people in the trans community. Of course, this violence is going to be continued to be perpetuated. Of course, percentage of unhoused two-spirit youth in Edmonton alone is shockingly high. And I think the last research was done in 2025. I think it was like at least 60% of the youth that are unhoused in Edmonton alone identify as 2S LGBTQI plus.
Mm.
And where does that come from? Not feeling safe to be at home, being ostracized from community, being kicked out of that's where a lot of like two-spirit people had to leave their communities because again, it was not safe for two-spirit people to exist after residential schools, and that impact was really prevalent. So a lot of like two-spirit, 2S LGBTQI plus folks would leave to the big cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and there's whole other rich histories around that. And like it also that's another way of disconnecting is like separating people from their culture. And that is really evident when we think about and when we look at where the higher populations of like queer folks are and urban indigenous folks are in the bigger cities because they're like, oh, I'm leaving my community to go find another community to be safe in.
Mhm.
And so that's where a lot of these like smaller two-spirit movements started from, is because of like that understanding of being ostracized for existing as they are and in our truth as two-spirit people. Now, because of colonization, the attacks against 2S LGBTQI plus people it happens like kind of on the kimouch in a way where but it's getting worse. You know, like I said, I had a friend that shared their story about them getting attacked right in their home
Mm.
and from somebody that's their neighbor, and they thought that they were safe. And it's because of these bills that make it okay for people to be hateful towards our community, which is not good. And that's also another reason why I quit the Premier's Council. And I can say it because again, I'm not bound by that confidentiality, is that every time I would try to bring it up about these bills and these anti-trans legislations in the spaces where we're supposed to be advocating and holding these ministries to putting fire under their butts and furthering along the 231 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation and within Alberta, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Mm.
Nobody wants to talk about it
Mhm.
because people are afraid to rock the boat. I'm like, well, here I am. I'm not afraid to rock the boat at all. That's what's gotten me here, is being so fed up of being silenced, being
Yes.
quiet. It's like, why are we okay with this happening?
Mm.
How can we like? They're like, oh, you can't change anything. The bill's already passed. I'm like, but that's not a law that's set in stone and forever. These things can be changed.
Yeah.
It's, like, do we have to wait till many people are murdered and, commit suicide from being bullied or having severe mental health conditions from not being able to access services because of their identity as being a two-spirit person or a trans person? And I think about that stuff all the time. And so, colonization really got us into a really murky place with that in the two-spirit resurgence, but it's also like we have such wonderful trailblazers, and especially in Canada alone, like we work with, I don't know if have you talked to like even Richard Jenkins?
The last time I talked to him was last year.
He's one of our elders on our campus. And he's one of the people that actually started like the work here in Edmonton. And
Yes.
so like I love Richard Jenkins. Like
Shout out to Richard
we love Richard
Jenkins.
Jenkins, literally one of our trailblazers, and they actually live in like, right by Key.
Okay.
Yeah, and they want to start actually like a something two-spirit related out that way.
Yes.
And I'm like, please let a two-spirit person lead this work in this area because we have too many like white gay people trying
Mm.
to put the people want to put 2S in front of the acronym, but they don't want to actually center two-spirit people. And I think that gets missed so often, is especially I notice it so much like because I work in nonprofit
Mhm.
and I'm around a lot of grassroots organizations that there's so many like Morialak representation that are like gay people or queer. It's that added layer. It's like, oh, you gotta stop centering yourself. And no wonder you're not getting anywhere because you're not involving the indigenous people.
Mm.
We have, if more people like took teachings and understood the world the way we would be, we wouldn't have all of these things. Imagine
Yes.
how much peace we'd be in, like how much further we'd be ahead as a society if like people were still sleeping, if that makes sense.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, I think of all this stuff all the time. I live and breathe this stuff.
But honestly, like, it just makes me think of, like, we have so much work to do, and as you're sharing, I'm thinking, like, "Oh, like, I wish I was living here in Edmonton because 'cause I'd be right beside you and helping you do this work," but then I'm thinking, like, I live in small communities, like, in the Lakeland, and there is, one society, the Pride St. Paul Pride Society, and they're doing amazing work. It takes small steps because it's a small community, and there's, like, religion and people, like, they're just so narrow-minded.
There's different ways to advocate and, protest, whether it's like out loud or silently. And I feel like, and it's so embarrassing to say that, when you think about what's going on in the United States,
Oh my god.
too many people in this province are drinking the premier's Kool-Aid, I swear it. And she's got her head up Trump's chisk, and
That's crazy.
it is. And this is like the Texas of Alberta, of Canada. The highest number of Trump supporters is in Alberta,
Mhm.
the maple makers, and I'll never understand that, and I don't wanna ever understand that mindset. It's like, how could you hate human beings so much that I'll never get it, and I'll never try to understand it because that radicalization, that radical love is like, I was just raised on empathy and how to be a helper and help people because I have a good heart,
Mhm.
and I don't know, there's so many other battles that we could be fighting and getting ahead as a society where I think what's in somebody's, reproductive organs are, is such a hot topic. Yeah, we can be like solving world hunger and like, more, that's the least interesting thing about a person, and yet that's the most that it's the obsession that these people have.
Yeah.
Also, I think they're also low key DL.
It's, talk it makes me think about Tupac when he said they have money for the war, but they don't have money to feed the poor.
And that's by design. But, like, I was just listening in on a meeting today, and they're like, the system is not flawed. The system is working perfectly for the way it was designed. Benefits that 1% and then the 90% uh, are affected by, the resources extraction. It's all intertwined. Like, it's all meticulous. It's all purposeful. These things, why there's people that incite. There's people that go to these, like when I think about Minnesota, I think about like when there's people that are literally paid to go and instigate and cause violence and agitate people. And it's all done to keep, it's all about power and control,
Mhm.
power of resources, power of money, and why we clash with those worldviews because our connection is to the land. And so that's my mind. It just gets blown away by like how like sometimes I want to just like shake somebody like wake up like this is like we have do you see the immigrant that's the newcomer to Canada and the trans person is not the reason why our social services programs get cut, why there's no mental health supports, why we're in a deficit, why are public funding education. It's not because of the drag queen reading a book in the library. It's the people in power and the people with the higher amounts of wealth
Mhm.
that want to just keep getting richer and benefiting off of like the blood, sweat, and tears of like Black and Indigenous people.
Yeah.
And so it just the more that I especially when we just finished like our roundtable with Michelle, that further expanded my brain, and it was like shit's just connected
Yes.
all connected. And I'm seeing like the little when you do like those brain maps or something, like the little connections to things, I'm like, it's all connected, it's all connected. And it's tiring. I'm tired. This work is exhausting, but somebody's got to do it.
For real.
Because if not us, then who?
Exactly. Creator sent us for a reason.
Yep.
Let's get into the next question. In your own journey, what has reclaiming two-spirit love look like within yourself, within relationships, and your community work?
Reclaiming my two spirit identity is a freedom. I spoke on it earlier. It's a freedom that I've never experienced in my life. I feel like a part of me came up for air after and coming to that understanding about myself as a two-spirit person and reclaiming that role, and that responsibility is to help our community, to be a helper and give back where we can. And so learning like what my understanding and connection to my two-spirit identity is, like that connection to my culture, our culture, to our ceremonies, to the land, and reclaiming that love that was taken from us as Indigenous people is by creating spaces for these for, as a two-spirit for person, for other two-spirit people to exist freely and safely as themselves without having to hide parts of themselves. So, like, a lot of the spaces that I'm in is mostly queer spaces, Indigenous queer spaces, and it's all ceremonial. Like, it's been a lifesaver, like, admitting that and knowing that there's language to the way that I feel inside and having a cultural connection to it is literally like suicide prevention. I knew that I always identified as being bisexual. But when I learned about two-spirit identity, like two SLGBTQI plus identities from an Indigenous perspective, that really like changed it for me because it solidified that I have a purpose. Like there's a purpose. We have a purpose and we exist because Creator made us this way. There's nothing wrong. Because I see and have been witness to a lot of harmful situations against and within the two-spirit community, be it lateral violence or outside sources of violence, that was enough, and losing somebody that I love was enough for me to know that I wanted to be a part of like the solution to like moving our community into a space of wellness towards more wellness rather than all the infighting that we see. And so I channel a lot of that passion into our housing project because it's a space for Indigenous two-spirit folks and to be fleeing gender-based violence in the city. And we've already been like getting calls from like high level about people asking
Mm,
about our housing. And it's that knowing that there's a need, but wanting to be a part of like a new world. The way that I see things, like I feel like the world's on fire right now and it's all burning down, like
mhm,
both spiritually and literally. So
mhm,
reclaiming that about myself means accepting that about myself, and it made it so much easier to question my own biases and question, unconscious bias that we all carry. We all carry that. We're all, there's many things I've had to work through because of not knowing that something was harmful. It's a part of life. Reclaiming two-spirit identity means existing in a truth and authentically and unapologetically and accepting that and loving that about myself, that there's nothing wrong with me. Like I didn't like that part of like, a lot of internalized homophobia and a lot of external homophobia. I said some really awful stuff to people that I know that were outly identifying, not realizing, hello, subtle foreshadowing,
mhm.
like a little touch of the gay, I like to say, and so I've made peace with that and I've been forgiven, I've come to that understanding, but it's that radical acceptance of one's own identity and living in it anyway, regardless of the pushback and the non-agreements that comes with it, it's
Mhm,
still so freeing. Like, honestly, I don't I get to exist as myself. Even like my form of radicalization and liberation is to exist as myself in a world that tells me not to exist as myself. It's also it's so cool being around other two-spirit people all the time because my friends are so affectionate and loving. I'm like, I don't even need a partner. Like my friends, like they're so like I'll get hugs and kisses on the cheeks and like pats and like you. And it's so freely and they're and they'll like it's nothing like weird sexual, you know what I mean? Like
It's just
predatory. Just
love.
love. And I'm
It's just love.
like that's what's been holding me down is honestly like I have some of the really like the best people I know in my life are in the community and and seeing them be free, seeing
Mhm,
them live in their truth and doing this work and getting actually volunteering with E2S really helped me reclaim that because it gave words and language to a big void and a big shadow in my life that followed me around, and that's been the whole journey is like discovering that what that means. It's been so awesome, being able to contribute to the work that E2S does in different ways. We have so many different plans, like even for outreach and building community relationships. I have to give you a presentation sometime. We've been up to some really good stuff and being able to be a part of people that get that. Like sometimes me and my friends at work will just sit and like, oh, we were talking about our rent party days. But it's nice to be open and not, there's like no shame. There's no shame like within the reclamation of that two spirit love. And it taught me a lot about what I thought was love was possessiveness, but I've met people that are like polyamorous and like they're open relationships. I'm like, doesn't that bother you? You're like, no, like this is what works for us or this is what works for me and this is why. I'm like, oh, okay. So like I get to live vicariously through my friends who
Yep.
do, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm like, I may not be doing it myself and having like 5 boyfriends and 1 girlfriend, so, you know, but I'm enjoying that you're living your best life, you know? I'm your number 1 supporter. You're inspiring me. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough, you know?
Yo, for real. I feel like this year I'm gonna do my best to get out there in a good way. Like I want to go to like different events and stuff like that and just be myself. And I've learned like just recently I went to this EDM show side piece. So it's like EDM music and just going to that event was like so liberating because it's been so long. Like I've been in that a relationship for 6 years and I didn't do anything, right? And so I was just very sheltered and I think that's like another piece of me that I'm like that healing piece where I'm like I need to force myself to get out again and like go to different events and just be okay and not to feel like I'm walking on eggshells because that's what it was like before, right? Feeling like I'm walking on eggshells, like I couldn't be myself, I can't be authentic and now I'm like this year I'm going to be free and that's how I'm going to meet people. If I end up in a poly relationship, then all right.
I'm remaining open to the possibilities and whatever creator has set for me and my truest and highest good.
Yes.
If that means a boyfriend and a girlfriend, I don't care.
Yes, there
Putting it
you
out
go.
you know,
Yes.
that's what, like, honestly, like I said, like, if I had known that and understood that about myself, I would have been living like that a long time ago.
Right?
Right? You know, but it's not the way life works. But did you notice that my TP has
Yes.
labia?
I was just looking at that. I was like, yes, respect.
I don't even know why I brought it up.
No, well, because I was like obviously looking at you, and then I started looking around, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, I love the flaps.
The sacred flaps. It sounds like a line. Show me your sacred flaps. I'm set up in my TP.
Bring your red flag.
I thought those were ceremonial rings.
Yeah. Yo, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need a painting like that. Yes, yes.
I can't show it for explicit reasons, but let's just say the TP has flaps.
Yes. Good flaps.
Just stare right into the camera. You know?
And there's a lot of pun in that one. Okay, so on the flip side, what gives you hope? Where are you seeing resilience, healing, and beautiful examples of Indigenous love showing up today?
That I can narrow it down to one pivotal moment. Shortly after Taryn died, I started a new job with the city as an intern in their Indigenous Relations office. And so part of my job was like it was a 1-year contract, and I'd spend half my time working with a community organization and then the other half working in the city of Edmonton Tower downtown doing like the bureaucratic paperwork logistics side of working with the city. And so my first 6 months I was with the Humble Lodge or Kapate Mokamik, which is it started as a research project with Dr. Lana Whiskey Jack and Amanda Almond and Dr. James McCocus. So it really grew into, we're at the point, we're in our second year of a Two-Spirit fast camp. And so I went the year before, this was like less than a month after Taryn died. And I was just starting to be unnumbed by the news and coming out of my shock and starting to feel the heaviness. And I would actually ended up going out on the land for like a week and being a helper at the Two-Spirit fast camp that was started actually by my family. We had this session. We were, like when, I don't know if you've ever been to a fast camp, being a helper, or usually like the way that we do it is that there's a teepee, a big giant teepee that all of the guests come to each night. And it's kind of in front of the tree line. And then behind the tree line in the bush is where all the fasters were. And then there's the teepee. So in that teepee one night, like we would meet for ceremony every night. And then I was feeling very particularly heavy in my grief, and there was an impromptu like grief sharing circle, and it was like the first time like I was ever able to talk about her dying and having my pain witnessed. And from there, being a helper there and facing that and feeling it all out while in ceremony and people knowing what, and even my boss knew, they're like, we knew you were going through it. And, it just happened to work out there where that gave me something to look forward to. And so my spirit, I went in as a helper, but then my spirit knew that I wanted to fast. So, and through all the throes of like my grief and like the heavy, hard feelings, like that was something that I kept, like, I have something to look forward to. And what kept me going was knowing that my spirit wanted to meet me there. And so that year, it took a year. I was preparing. Didn't come easy. Like I ended up deleting my Facebook. I had enough of that social media. Like it was making my grieving process worse. And it was the people that held space for me in those ceremony spaces, like, my cousin, Dr. James McCocus, like I was able to reconnect with them and I was connecting more with like people that came from all over Turtle Island to come to this specific site. And the way just people, I was also on my moon. So people were taking care of me. Even though I went there, I'm the one that's like, let's lift all the heavy stuff. Let's get stuff going. No, I ended up having my moon. I couldn't touch anything. And so I had to sit there and be prayerful. And that was so hard for me because I'm a distractor by keeping busy. And so, yeah, like I was able to start that opening up process and it gave me opportunities, but praying for it and asking for it to prepare for it and spent a year preparing. I was, and throughout that process, like I've had a small group of people that have like really been able to show up for me. Like, one of my really good friends, Daystar, when I really like, she was just there and didn't expect anything, and she lived here still at the time, like, and I didn't know how to reach out to people. She would just show up, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I'm the strong one, right? I'm the one that does all the fixing. I'm the one that has the answers, and I didn't have any answers. So what restored hope in me is going through all of those really heavy emotions and feeling like I'm dying and literally dying on the inside, and I'm still here smiling, and I'm still here glowing, and I'm still here being alive. And it came with the cost of, somebody that I love being not being on this earthly plane anymore, but the hope was that there's always something to be grateful for. And I started being a part of a community, doing the work that I do. Being a housing manager, honestly, has been also a really big blessing. And then that's the hope that I get, is that somebody will learn something from my story, from my lived experience, something that I'll say to somebody, a word or a quote or something that I say out of nowhere. I may not think it's a big impact. It's like that hope is like leaving a positive impact, because that embodiment I got that from is my Muslim, and I got that from Tanner. I fell in love with the fact that she worked in a soup kitchen. I fell in love that she was an artist and she encouraged me to pursue my art. She's the one that supported me the most when I was just getting started. She would come and sit with me at markets. And so being able to carry on that hope that there is a light, even though sometimes it may not seem like there's a light, and there's days where the light's not there, you're not even looking at in that direction, but it's there, that it strengthened my connection to my spirit. It strengthened my connection to, I never thought that I'd be in a space where I was healthy enough to fast. So in August of 2025, actually, yeah, July of 2025, when I completed my first full 4-day fast in a two-spirit fast camp, I got to spend time with my family on the land. I spent a lot of like these last year and a half crying my eyes out. And that's one of the hardest things we do as humans, is allowing ourselves to feel. And it's, that saying when they say the journey, hardest journey is from your head to your heart. And when we talk about hope, I found Creator just has this very beautiful way of putting things in our path, whether it's people or experiences, like my job, connecting to my family. The first year, I was outside a lot. I was walking a lot. I was out on the land a lot. I was crying. I was picking medicines. I was like, I knew that I was like, I was messed up. Like, I don't even know how I made it out of that. Like, I felt like dying so many times, but I knew to pray. I knew to smudge. I knew to cry. I knew I would talk to myself. And I've never been able to do that because I never experienced having to be there for myself in that way, learning to hold myself. It's nice to have that surrounding of people that love and care about you, but I had there not every they couldn't people couldn't be here for me all day, every day, right? And there were times I literally had to, like, pry myself out of bed to eat or clean my house or and I would pray to my uncle, I would pray to all of my family and people that I know that are in the spirit world, and I would just get these signs, I would just get these messages, and I because of, like, stripping away all of the everything in my spirit and my mental about life, love, this and that, and having to start over fresh, I'm more receptive to, like, listening to, like, the greater wisdom that's out there and, like, tapping into my own trusting my own intuition, and, my hope is that, like, with all of the things that I've been through, that I can help impact as many lives as I can positively in whatever way that looks like, because I've seen hurt, I've seen darkness, and I don't wanna be the reason why somebody doesn't have light in their eyes, or somebody's not here, or somebody doesn't wanna take a chance or a risk on something. I wanna be somebody that encourages others to pursue their goals, encourages others to seek help in getting recovery, or go connect to ceremony, or laugh a little louder, because that's what she would have wanted. She would have
Mhm.
wanted that. She wouldn't want me to stay stuck. She wouldn't want me to stay so stuck that I'm stuck in the angry part, in the pits of it where I'm bleeding all over people, you know what I mean? Like, I knew that, I needed to deal with the grief, and that's why I don't date too. It's like this it's so heavy that I don't feel the energy to go at hope, even that hope of being hopeful that there is a person out there is somebody out there. It wasn't all for nothing.
Mhm. Mhm.
That there's me love actually love deeper and experience. It taught me being able to safely experience heavy emotions, whether it's like being over joyful or being very sad or being angry. It's all of that.
My gosh, such good medicine. Oh my goodness, I just love that. I feel like people that are listening, like, clock it. Clock it in because that is exactly what we need. That's exactly what our communities need and our families need, and just us as individuals, like that hope and that healing. And I just loved everything you just said. Yes, so powerful. Yes, good medicine right there.
I think because of, like, the delicate nature of the work that we do, we're gonna get all kind it's taught me is, like, not to judge somebody's story. And, like, that radical love is, like, people deserve second chances to get their lives together. And, how many people out there are without their basic needs met, are just trying to survive. That if we give them all of have their basic needs met, provide them a safer space, a space that loves and accepts them as they are, how many people will grow into their gifts? And
Mhm.
how many artists out there, whose gifts are untapped, or how many scholars we have, or how many medicine people we have, how many, sweat lodge makers we have, how many plant medicine people we have that are stuck in those streets, that are stuck in these cycles. I feel like that love is about that responsibility we have to one another to help one another. That's one of our teachings. Like, that's one of our natural laws, is to help one another. And I grew up around that. Like, so it comes naturally to me, easier to do when you've seen how shitty the world can actually be, and actively not wanting to see the world in that way. That, sometimes I do see the world is sparkly and rainbows and sunshines, and that's okay.
Heck yeah.
I know, and it's nice to be at that side, because I was miserable for so long thinking I was happy, and now truly am. So, I'm here for it all.
Yes, we gotta be loud and proud all the time, and that's what it's about. Ashley, thank you for bringing your whole self, your truth, and your love into this circle today. These conversations matter. They are medicine. They remind us that Indigenous love has always been exclusive, sacred, and powerful. So no matter how hard colonization tried to erase that truth, to everyone listening, I hope this episode affirms you, challenges you, and reminds you that love, especially two spirit love, is not something new or borrowed. It is ancestral, it's intentional, and it is ours. So thank you for sitting with us for this episode of Muskeg Tea with Chantel G. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep choosing love as an act of resistance and reclamation. Hi, hi, exit.